This episode is brought to you by TaxAct. Don't do your taxes alone. Join TaxAct's National Admin Night. Admin nights are social gatherings for getting through your to-do list. So get ready for a night of fun, finding deductions, and filing taxes with TaxAct, where you can file your federal and state return for just $49 through April 8. Let's get together and get them over with. Visit taxact.com/admin-night for details.
October is here, and that means it's time for pumpkin patches, apple cider, chilly weather, and staying informed ahead of the election right around the corner. There's no better place to stay up to date on the latest headlines than the DSR Network, and there's no better way to enjoy our podcast than by becoming a member. DSR members get access to exclusive content, our Discord and Slack communities, an ad-free listening experience, and more. Right now, you can get 30% off your membership by going to thedsrnetwork.com/buy and using code BOO. That's thedsrnetwork.com/buy and use code BOO. We hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome to The Secret Life of Cookies, where we try to solve the world's problems through the miracle of carbohydrates, one recipe at a time, with host Marissa Rothkopf and her dog, Bosco.
Hello there. Now, Julia Child said never to apologize. And she was right about just about everything except for this one thing. So let me say, I am sorry for the lapse in podcasts over the last month-ish or so. I have been busy, though. I've been busy at work on writing and recipe testing for my cookbook. Yes, it's called The Secret Life of Chocolate Chip Cookies. The podcast, she is going to have offspring. It's true. But even with the election happening the day after my manuscript is due, that is heavy breathing you hear in the background. It's me panting. Anyway, the election is happening the day after my manuscript, as I just said, and I have to talk about the election. And who better to kick it all off with again than Joyce Vance, former federal prosecutor, professor of law, co-host of Sister-in-Law podcast, and legal analyst for NBC and MSNBC, and of course, friend to chickens and knitters alike. I had to talk to Joyce about this because I know it is a topic near and dear to her heart. And we discussed how to make sure everybody knows that their vote counts and what you can say to people who don't believe it matters if they don't vote. So this is a podcast to get ourselves psyched up and ready to vote. And more importantly, to understand why every vote truly matters. Just a teeny bit of housekeeping before we get to the good stuff. All the recipes for this podcast and links can be found on my Substack newsletter at marissarothkopf.substack.com. You can support my work, if you would, with a subscription for $5 a month, or if that's not possible yet, you can subscribe for free. And don't forget, join Deep State Radio as a member for special perks. Either way, I am grateful for your support. And now to the podcast. Hello. I have Joyce Vance on this rainy Saturday afternoon. She has taken time out of her busy schedule to be with me and us, and also some warm cookies that just came out of the oven, Joyce.
I just want it known that you've taken cookies out of your oven. I can see you doing it. You're about to eat them in front of me, and I am just left to imagine how delicious they must taste. Is this any way to start a podcast with a good friend, Marissa?
No, bit rude. But just so you know, there's too hot to eat now. But these
are these
me. This one isn't too hot, and this other kind is not too hot, and this other kind is not too hot either. I wanted to use...
Bitch, you're gonna have to beat me. Hey, is that the perfect chocolate chip cookie recipe? What is that you've got
I've
there?
got here, I'm writing this chocolate chip cookie cookbook, and people are like, so what's your favorite? And I'm like, it's like children. First of all, to have a favorite chocolate chip cookie is really to like, how could you, right? It's like,
yeah, absolutely.
Like all dogs are cute. Some are cuter than others, it's that sort of thing. And also children are cute and some are cuter than others, like mine and yours. But I've started.
Okay, but look, let's be clear. On any given day, there's a chocolate chip cookie that I like better than at least one of my children.
But that's why there are chocolate chip cookies in the world. Just in front of me right now, I have a cookie that I named after the brother you don't know, my brother Paul. Hello, Paul.
Hi, Paul.
And this is the Paulie, and it has basically it's like nuts and coconut and oatmeal and chocolate chips and cranberries. And on the back of this one, there's a piece of cat fur, which is, I think, something I really...
that lands on my cookies a lot of the time, too. A little German Shepherd, a little Maine Coon. It's all good.
It's all good. It's all delicious. I'm the one with the hairballs. And here is one, this is called a fruit and nut bar cookie, and it's named after the Cadbury fruit and nut bar. So,
yum.
So, which is my father's favorite, like chocolate bar. And so it has chunks of Cadbury and almonds and raisins in it. And I made this one
delicious
with malted milk powder.
Ooh, what does that do?
It adds a nice chewy texture to it, and it makes the flavor. It boosts the flavor, like gives it I don't know. It kind of sometimes it hides a little bit of the baking soda flavor that you get in a cookie, which you shouldn't, but sometimes you do. It just makes it a richer cookie. And this
I need to make cookies Monday for my law students, actually, because we're doing double classes. So I'm going to take them coffee and cookies for the second one. And I might try your malted milk trick. That's amazing.
It's really nice. The other trick is if you have any bread flour, is doing a cookie. I'll send you my recipe.
Okay.
Advanced notice. That is a cookie that I make with a little more bread flour than white flour, and you beat the eggs and the sugar and stuff for a long time, and it makes it really like you get this crackly crust almost on the top of it, and it's chewy. So it's like,
that sounds like my perfect cookie.
It's like all the things in one place. And I made another one in honor of my daughter's upcoming birthday with it, which is a chocolate
birthday, Kate.
I'm sure she thanks you. Chocolate cookie. It's like a brownie basically, but I put Andy's mints in it.
Okay, can I ask you a question about brownies? Am I weird? I put Kahlua in my brownies. You know how like you put vanilla or whatever? I put a couple tablespoons of Kahlua in mine, and I swear they are fabulous.
Yeah.
Somebody was telling me today that doesn't make any sense to do that, but I'm just going to tell you, experience in the Vance household suggests otherwise.
That your dear friend who said that is wrong, and you are typical right, because it does make a difference. I make cookies with, and I'm pointing at the bottle, Bailey's Irish Cream. I make cookies with bourbon in them.
Yum.
I make cookies. If you don't have vanilla, use rum.
I'm going to spend the rest of the day cooking. You're a bad influence.
Why, thank you. I actually asked you here today to be a good influence.
Well, I'll try.
Yeah. You had a Substack post the other day, and I know it's something that you've been saying all along, but that this election is not a gimme. Those are your words. And
that's right.
Not only do we have to keep on fighting for it, it seems to me that even come November 5th, we might still be in the weeds.
Yes.
And I worry, and so there's like two parts to this. And the first is, I'm talking to my students all the time, and a lot of them feel like, why would my vote count? Like I'm an 18-year-old pipsqueak, and I'm just learning to vote, and I'm not in a swing state. So why does it matter? And I wonder what you would say to them.
Yeah, I have so many answers. The most important one for this election is that in this election, every vote truly does count, because we know that if Trump loses, he's not going to go gracefully off into the night, right? Anyone who's deluding themselves into that view just needs to set that aside. So it will be important to have a smashing tidal wave of votes in the popular vote count to show how systematic and state by state and overwhelming Kamala Harris's victory is. Because Trump is going to go to court and he's going to claim that there was fraud. Most likely, he's going to claim that people who he would call illegal aliens and who I would call undocumented people, that they are going to vote in tremendous numbers, that Democrats have lured them across the border and registered them to vote right at the border, right? I mean, we're hearing all of these myths in circulations. States like mine have already removed people with alien numbers from the active voter rolls. You get an alien number if you come to this country legally, having applied for citizenship. And so some 3,000 Alabama voters who've been through that process have now been removed from the active voter rolls in violation of the National Voting Rights Act, because we're now within that 90-day period where your active voting status can't be changed. But that's, maybe a story for another day. It's a long-winded way of saying to your students, your vote counts as one voice in the entire country, because in our country, the voting electorate, it is made up of individual voices. And that means that every vote is uniquely valuable, and it doesn't matter where you are. We always hear these stories about how the election will be decided by 12 people in a county in Pennsylvania, right? Who knows? Maybe it'll be Pennsylvania.
You're right.
I do too.
I hate those stories.
I mean, maybe it's Pennsylvania, maybe it's Georgia, maybe it's Arizona, maybe it's a combination of toss-up states. But the reality is every voice and every vote will matter in this election. And if you do not believe that you have personal responsibility to participate in democracy and that you can leave it up to other people, well, look at 2016, where a lot of people had to say, yeah, I didn't vote. Now, can I just raise one other reason people should vote that applies to every election? You are not just voting for a president. You are voting up ballot and down ballot. You might be voting for your mayor, your city council, your member of Congress, your state elected officials, a governor, all of the above. And those races, the closer to home they are, the more they matter. Your mayor may have more to do with your day-to-day life than the president does. And certainly your members of Congress will have a lot to do. Here's the dark foreboding. One of the strategies that smart people who look at elections think could be in the offing will be an effort to create a situation where the outcome of this election gets thrown into the House. And it will matter greatly whether the House is controlled by Republicans or Democrats after this election. Speaker Johnson versus Speaker Jeffries, big difference in how those votes are tallied. So simply going out to vote for your member of Congress is an act, is a vote that says you believe in democracy this go round. No one can afford to stay home. Even if you think that you can, that your vote isn't important, go out and vote anyhow. It's never been more important.
I think the point about the down ballot, and especially about Congress, is such a good point. And I think the next time somebody asks me, that's the reason I'm going to tell them to vote. Aside from the very basic that every vote counts. And I think that's really hard for people to believe these days, except for the fact that, we have a former president, Trump, who keeps claiming that it's all being rigged against him, even if he wins, unless he wins, which is, I don't know how that works.
I mean, isn't it fabulous, right? The election is only rife with fraud if I lose. If I win, everything's copacetic. And, my favorite from 2016 was how fraud had led to his loss, but all of these Republican senators and members of Congress who won, well, somehow that was okay. I mean, the real problem with a lot of Trump's election lies is that they just don't hold water if you take a second to think about them. Something that we can all do is sort of say that to our friends and neighbors who are thinking about voting for Trump. Explain to me, how did that work, that there was fraud when it came to Trump, but not fraud for your senators and members of Congress? And watch them scratch their heads for, well, there is no answer to that one, right?
There is no answer to that one. And it's a really good head scratcher. I don't engage with people because who are Trump supporters, even though it's always very tempting for me, because most of the time it is sort of a lost cause of sorts. And I don't want to get into a shouting match, but I have thought of like what the kind of kinder, gentler way to approach a Trump supporter would be. And it would be to say, something like, I just don't like the way I watch him treat veterans.
That's such a good thing to do. I write a whole newsletter called Civil Discourse that's about how do you have difficult conversations, right? I study and teach in that area, and I write about it. And, it's really interesting. I hear so many Democrats who say, I just don't want to engage with them. I don't want to cause a scene. I have never heard a Trump supporter say that, and I have had a great many of them get awfully close to my face to talk with me about my political views. But I had a conversation that has really been troubling me all day this morning with a woman at the farmer's market who told me, she said, I'm a 60-something woman in Alabama. All of my friends are Trump supporters. I'm joined by a bad kitty cat who has a bad track record down here. Sorry about that. Dingus. But she said, we're getting ready to go to the beach with my friends. And I know that they're just going to put Fox News on all the time. And I said, well, why don't you stay an hour of Fox, an hour of MSNBC? Fair's fair. Oh, no, I couldn't do that. And I think sometimes, and this is sometimes in this moment, we need to stop being so damn deferential. And we need to say, let's just be fundamentally fair. I mean, I might hate your hour of Fox. You might hate my hour of MSNBC. Let's listen to what people are saying on the other side. And we can at least think about it. I'm a big fan of planting seeds. I mean, I think like this notion of, well, how could the election be fraudulent for Trump if the votes for senators were okay, right?
Right.
I think that's one that plants a lot of seeds of doubt in the minds of people. They may not acknowledge in the moment. They may never tell you that changed their views. But especially now, so many people are beginning to come around. We've got to have these conversations.
And it is challenging. Are you needing to have an important conversation, a hard conversation with Dingus?
I'm really hoping that Dingus will leave. Oh, good. There he goes. He's done whatever damage he's going to do. This is where I keep all of my yarn, and Dingus loves to play with my yarn.
There must be like cat safes that you can keep it away from your cat. But
it's called the freezer that's in our basement that my husband thinks has food in it, but it doesn't.
It has.
Shh, don't tell anybody.
No one, everyone, it's our secret. Does it keep the yarn?
Did you not know?
Fresh? No.
It keeps moths and kitty cats out of my yarn. I got like this super cheap freezer on sale a few years ago. And I mean, I ended up doing it because it cost less than like a bookcase that I was going to put my yarn in. And moths cannot get into a freezer. So I probably am saying too many of my dark and ugly secrets.
We're learning a lot here.
I consider you a friend. But yes, there is a freezer that my husband thinks has like steak or something in it that has yarn.
And come the apocalypse, he's going to be like, don't worry, Joyce, I don't have to go to the grocery store. We have a freezer full of food. And you're going to be like, do you like your steaks well done?
Yes, again.
Exactly. I'm sure there's ice cream there. No, sweetie. So Trump is determined, I think, no matter what, he's planting the seeds at every rally that he's at, that he's going to doubt the results. And one of the things that happened, and I just want you to, in case someone hasn't read your Substack, this little piece of news sort of, to me, floated beneath the radar for a lot of people, that Georgia, 2 weeks ago, emails from county electors in Georgia surfaced, revealing that people who worked as election deniers in 2020 are ramping up and getting their, calculators that don't work, and ready to deny the results of this election. And this is happening in Georgia, but not just Georgia, but other swing states.
Yeah, so bad shit is happening in red states. In Georgia, and it's sort of complicated and inside baseball stuff. You know, I did election protection work inside of the Justice Department. I've continued to do voting rights work now that I'm just a regular old lawyer again. It's complicated. But part of the process that's never been complicated before this is what happens after the votes are counted. You know, there's this whole apparatus for taking ballots on Election Day and counting them. And then they have to be certified after they're counted. That's always been viewed as purely ministerial, meaning whoever the certifying official is just takes the ballot counts and reports those totals as the totals for that jurisdiction or state or whatever. Trump followers, and this is akin, by the way, it's sort of the cousin to what they tried to do on January 6th with Mike Pence and certification of the Electoral College vote. Well, now they want to empower, in this case, officials in some of the counties in Georgia to reject those votes, to say, my job isn't just ministerial. I'm actually going to look into these numbers. And you know what? I have concerns that illegal aliens, as they say it, voted in this election. So I'm not going to certify this count. I need to delay it. We're going to throw it to the courts, the state legislature, whatever, but I'm not going to certify this count. Injecting a lot of doubt into the election and perhaps putting them into the hands of an agency that's willing to certify an election for Trump when in fact Kamala Harris is the victor. You know, there's only a couple of things you can do after an election to change the outcome, right? You can subtract some votes. You can say these are invalid. You can add votes. You can say these weren't counted. Or you can throw the certification process into dispute like this and create chaos. And boy, when has Trump, you know, failed to create chaos when it's an option for his own personal survival? Because the outcome of this election, I think, for Donald Trump has very little to do with whether or not he's the president and a lot to do with whether or not he goes to federal prison for the rest of his life.
So it's in his best interest and the interest of his friends to do this. And you really upset my stomach with that one. I may have.
I'm sorry.
It's what can I do?
You know, it's so hard, right? I have a friend who, when you try to have a conversation like this with her, you know, because she'll say, "Oh, I'm worried about the election. I'm upset." And if you talk about specifics, she'll say, "Well, we just can't think about that." And you know, I'm sorry. I would like to be that person. I would like to say, that's right. Let's go play with, you know, unicorns and fairies or whatever. It is too serious of a moment in our history for us to ignore it. I'm afraid we're going to have to confront these harsh truths because there are things we can do, like creating turnout that is so massive that when Trump tries to claim fraud, the numbers simply belie that, right? Massive turnout is something that might get us through this election. That's something we can all take personal responsibility for. We can only do that if we confront this really difficult situation that the country is in and realize we just can't afford to, you know, sit at home and do nothing. I mean, I will confess that there was an election cycle where my husband and I'm not proud of this, we watched every episode of every season of The Supernatural to avoid watching the news. Isn't that terrible?
No.
But that was what we did. We did it together. It was a family thing. Our kids joined in for parts of it because we knew how we were going to vote and we knew what was going on. This just is not that election. And I'm sorry to say that. People are busy. They're taking care of their kids and their parents. Some people have 2 and 3 jobs. People have all sorts of stress. They don't need to be stressed out about Donald Trump stealing an election. But by God, if we're not stressed out about it right now and don't do whatever we can, we are going to end up with a dictator in the White House.
Well, I think that brings this conversation full circle.
I know I'm such a joy on a Saturday afternoon. I feel bad.
No, you should. No, of course you shouldn't feel bad. The whole point of having cookies is balance to all of this. I think the point that you make, and I'm just repeating it, if people were like, doing something else for a moment, in fact, don't listen to me, just rewind and listen again to the last 5, 10, 15 seconds of what you were saying, that we do have to be concerned because we have to be aware of what could possibly go on. And that getting out the vote and making sure everybody votes is really the most important thing you can do. We just have to bowl them over with numbers.
I think that's right. That's dead on.
Just to like, if we all promise to vote, then we can talk about Joyce's chickens. You had baby, you had baby chickens. Baby chicks.
I do. Have I told you the story of how we got baby chicks?
No, please do.
Bob and I went off on a much-deserved vacation in Scotland. We went with some old friends. One of my best friends growing up, her husband's a geologist. This trip was all about the rocks, right? We just went out into the Hebrides, onto the Isle of Skye, into this really deserted area, and went hiking every day. Some days we saw no people. We saw lots of sheep, but no people.
Right.
And so while we're off having a good time, we have chickens in our backyard. We became pandemic chicken owners. We have a small flock. We left them home with our very capable son, Teddy. And Teddy became concerned a couple days before we came home when one of the hens didn't come home at night. But then she was there the next morning. And so we thought, oh, maybe it was just an aberration. And then she disappeared again. And after a few days of this, I sort of went looking and found that in our bamboo hedge, which is very, very dense at the very back of our yard, small urban yard, but big, dense bamboo, this sweet hen, Esther, had buried a nest deep in the bamboo where it's like dry, even pouring rain like we've had this, week with the hurricane doesn't get it. She had made a little nest with 11 of her beautiful tiny little blue eggs, and she was sitting on them very proudly and would not come off. But I was worried about predators, so I actually took just the small coop that we have, and I set her up in that coop with her little nest, carried everything up, all of her eggs, and bless her heart, Esther hatched 10 of those 11 eggs last Friday morning as I was on the way out the door to New York City. It's like, hey, honey, the chicks are hatching. Have a great weekend. But Bob and Esther did a good job. So she's got 10 adorable little chicks. If anybody is in Alabama and wants chicks, please contact me because I can't keep 10 chicks. They are going to all have to find new homes. But they're adorable, and they're probably going to lay blue eggs like their mama. But right now they're at that sweet peep stage where you pick them up and they're so cute and they eat out of your hand and they think that you're wonderful, and we've had a great time.
Is Bob a good chicken parent?
Bob is really good with animals. I sometimes tease him that I only married him because he's the only man I dated who liked both cats and dogs. and I, that's like a special person, right?
I agree.
But, it's a weird thing about my husband. Cats, dogs, and babies all like him, and so do baby chickens. One of our chickens will jump up on his lap if he's outside, just like scrolling on his phone. And there's a great video. I'll give it to you for your show notes. There's a video of Bob showing the chicken a TikTok video. And the chicken is very clearly moving her head to stay in line with the video. It's adorable.
I love that. I think that's a very happy note on a sort of gray Saturday to end
chickens.
on.
Chickens will save us all.
Chickens will save us all. And chocolate chip cookies. I'm sorry I'm not there to give you any, but I owe you some. I have to try these, though. These are vegan. This one here that I just took out of the oven is vegan. And I just want to see what it's like. It's soft in the middle. Oh, nice looking.
It's beautiful. I can't wait. When does your cookbook come out? Are we close? I caught you with your mouth full.
and the ASMR. I hope you're all enjoying it. The cookbook comes out middle of next year, which is very rare. I'm working on a really tight schedule. So if nobody hears from me until the day before election day when it's all due, that's why.
Oh. Well, that's super exciting. It's going to be so much fun when it comes out. I'm honored to get to watch you bake a little bit. Can I pre-order it on Amazon yet? Will you make sure I know when I can?
Believe me, I will. And thank you for suggesting such a thing.
Yes, I can't wait.
I can't wait to see you at some point in real life. But in the meantime, please kiss every single chicken from me.
And tell your family I send my love. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. See ya. Bye. Thank you for joining us on this week's podcast. If you would, please leave a review of the podcast on Apple. There's a reason that podcasters like me say it at the end, in the middle, at the top of every podcast. It's because we all are desperate for Apple to like us. No, it's really, truly, it's good for the algorithm. So if you could leave a review, that would be great. Please stay strong and remind everyone you know to check their voter registration and to vote early. Thank you so much. Have a great week.